we are, the other side of 230 kilometres across the Arctic Circle, and the final episode of Road to the Ice Ultra. This is going to be a roundup of the whole event itself, my expectations, what went well, what I'd change if I was to do it again, and a little bit about my overall experience. If you've watched all the other episodes so far, just want to say thank you for your support, your likes, comments, sharing it, and the messages I have received. But I'll kick this video off with my expectations. Originally, I didn't think I had any, based on never going to this kind of environment. However, me being naive, I always put some kind of expectation on myself to do well and that I can turn up and be quite competitive. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but I think if I was to go just thinking I'm going to be last every day, then it'd be quite miserable instead of being someone that believes in themselves and that can compete. So that's just the way I deal with it. So I thought I could be pretty competitive, and reasonably, yes, I was. Did I meet my true expectations that I set on myself? Probably not. However, I did have a great time and met some really cool people. And considering this was my first multi-day ultra, it was a steep learning curve whilst I was there. And I was surrounded by people that had a lot more experience than me, which I learned from, which was brilliant. So moving on to what went well. In terms of my build up to the event, my training, the kit preparations, the food preparations, it really went to plan. The kit I took was adequate and probably a little bit too much. However, not knowing what temperatures we're going to experience, at least I had the kit if I needed it. I didn't really want to get to Sweden and not have adequate or suitable kit and equipment. Food. So when it comes to my food, my basic principle was to keep eating real food and not rely on any liquid nutrition other than my salts. And for me, it worked perfectly. I honestly don't think if I went out there relying on liquid nutrition, like for example, like Tailwind, Vitago, and SIS pouches, I would feel really hungry. I quite like the process of eating food, chewing it, and it also allowed me to whip through the checkpoints pretty quick during the race. All I had to do was fill up water and go. I could eat my bars and my chocolate shortbread on the move. That being said, I would probably take some liquid nutrition on top of what I had, just as an extra bonus, because some of the days was flagging a little bit. The days were a lot longer than I was expecting. A little bit more on the clothing. Everything I had was warm enough, and all I wore the whole time was my base layer and shell jacket at a max. On day one, I only wore my base layer for the whole day, because it was a lot warmer than anyone expected, and plus I do run pretty warm when I'm moving fast, so the kit and clothing that I had was completely fine to keep me warm. Didn't overheat and didn't freeze, so that was good. The one thing I was worried about was my hands, and even at some points I was down to just my liner gloves, just from moving enough to generate enough body heat, as well as eating and drinking, which is also vital for keeping that body heat high. Another thing that went really well were my routines, be that in the morning, making sure I get up a couple of hours early before the start, prep my breakfast, get my electrolytes and fluids down me, go to the toilet, because obviously that's going to need to happen after a coffee, and in the evening, getting back in when your clothes are wet from either sweat or melted snow, and stripping down, putting my night bag, dry clothes on, and then repacking my bag for the next day. So that would be, I'd be taking out my next day's breakfast, electrolytes, and water. Get my tape out I needed in the morning for my feet, and all of my snacks would be in more accessible places on my pack or in my waist belt. that just gave me a bit of freedom in the morning to relax a little bit and just prepare myself mentally and physically for the day to come. So what would I change? If I was to change anything, really two options. I would probably change these if I wasn't trying to be so competitive. These are really light and the ones that are recommended, these snowshoes. However, because your shoe is strapped down into it, every time you move, your heel cannot lift. So instead, my heel was lifting inside my shoe and creating a lot of friction and some horrendous blisters. So you can sacrifice a little bit more weight or add a little bit more weight to your pack, and you can get ones that have a tilt on, so the whole of your heel actually lifts inside of the snowshoe. So I would either go with that, depending on how competitive I'd like to be, or just make sure I take my feet on day one, because I naively didn't take my feet. Yeah, I don't get blisters, and after day one, they were horrendous. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see from this shoe, it is stained with blood from blisters popping, bursting, and rubbing. These shoes were brilliant. They really were a gift. And the last 2 days, I didn't wear snowshoes at all, and for that blister reason. And these were great running through the snow. I've already mentioned about taking some more liquid nutrition, but I think I would take some more shortbread and chocolate. The little bag I had in the one of my previous episodes where I melted chocolate and mashed up shortbread, that was such a morale boost on each day when I'd tuck into that. So I think it was just nice to eat and easy to eat. The bars are great, but just having 2 of those a day just got a bit boring. Not that I couldn't eat them, it was just the chocolate shortbread and peanut butter mix was really tasty and definitely a good fuel source when the conditions are that cold. The final thing I would definitely change is get obsessive with my weight of my pack. Pack was probably up there with one of the heaviest packs of the group, and after being around those experienced runners that are a bit more obsessive on the weight side of things, I learned a lot of things about just reducing the packets of your dehydrated food. So they cut all of those packets open, poured them into a thinner sandwich bag, and if you've got, say, 8 meals, that's, say, 20 grams a packet. Just for the packet itself is going to add up and reduce not massive amounts of weight, but you can definitely notice a difference. As well as putting it in those flimsy sandwich bags, you're able to pack your kit much better, more like a set of bricks, and just use the space of your pack a little bit better. I didn't really bother too much about that. I just kept everything in its original packaging and then put each day in a clear bag, as you saw in my previous videos. But definitely there are ways to cut the weight down on what I was using, for sure. And some guys, they even took the minimum allowance of calories, which was 10,000. That was the minimum we had to pack. I don't know how they survived on that. I would have been starving, but those guys were the top group, so hats off to those. The overall experience of what happened. So day one, 50 kilometers. The night before that, we slept in a teepee on the floor on a reindeer hide. Although an absolute epic experience, it was windy and the side of the teepee just kept hitting me on the head. I was plenty warm enough in my sleeping bag, sleeping in just my underwear with my sleeping bag down to my waist because it was that hot. But just the wind and the teepee canvas just hitting me on the head didn't give way to a great sleep. But I hit the 50k the next morning, not really sure in how to approach that with layers. The snow started coming down. We were 12 kilometers on a road for the first time, so you could move pretty fast. And I was almost immediately down just to my base layers, so leggings and my merino wool hoodie that I have. Still took a while to get in the snowshoes until we got to the first incline. I think everyone was a little bit cautious or unsure when to put them on, but I decided as soon as we hit the incline of the first day that I had them on, and it definitely helped me get up the hill through the soft snow. That day was really hard on me. The same pain that I had show up on the race simulation showed up on my knee, which caused me a bit of grief, and I just was then kind of suffering for the rest of the day. And I can't really remember much between checkpoint 2 and 4, so was just getting on with it until I could see sort of the final downhill towards base camp for the night and could smell the firewood, and that perked my spirits up a little bit. Great sleep that night though. Had a full night's kit of 9 hours. Didn't even get up for the toilet, which was good. Day 2 was a complete contrast to day 1. Felt amazing, spirits were high, and it was going over Mount Cablar. It was beautifully clear and -30 up the top there, fully exposed to the wind and the elements. There was no snow, but the snow was being brushed and blown across the top, which looked amazing. And in the distance, you could see cloud inversions, sun was beaming. It was just brilliant. Those that know me will know that I love climbing up a mountain, so it was pretty cool. It was a great experience that day. And once you hit the top, it was pretty much downhill to base camp from there, so could shift pretty fast and finished that day really, really great, really strong, and moved into day 3, which was what's known to be the most mentally fatiguing day because we are on just frozen lakes virtually the whole day, and the final lake is 13 miles long. So for 21 kilometers, if it's clear, you can see your finish. If the weather's coming, the visibility is poor, you can't see nothing. So both are tough in their own way. I just had a routine in my head where I'd count every step with my right foot to 100 and just keep repeating that. And every 500, I'd take a sip of water and eat a little bit of food. This day was basically a commute to an ultra marathon because the following day is the long day of 64 kilometers. So I was making sure that I had excessive calories on this day, which were all planned in my nutrition beforehand. So had double dinners when I got back to our base camp, which was a little little island on the frozen lake, which was pretty cool. But it was this day that all of that blood was seeping through my shoe from the blisters, so they were giving me a hard time, and kind of swallowed my pride and visited the medics that evening to get some pads or something to just pack my blisters on my heels out, and I could take them, but they offered to do it for me the next morning, which was great. Before the long day, I was up at 4:30 that day because it was already an early start, and I had to see the medics at 5 a.m. to get taped. Really supportive, really helped me, and they actually gave me antibiotics because of a suspected infection in my heels from the blisters bursting. So far, all good. So this day is called the Sami, named after the Sami people that mark the whole route, and it was a really cool day, the longest day that I've ever done of 64 kilometers, starting in the dark and finishing in the dark. Although in the morning barely could walk because of the blisters, was actually moving pretty fast and made my way up the leaderboard on this day, and finished in 6th. At about 50 kilometers in, the sun started to set and the snow come in, and I felt purely alive. That was what I was really there for, is that experience of being in the dark and the snow and trying to find your way. It was just pretty cool. Moving on to day 5, which was the final day. We all slept together in a huge hall after the long day, and it's probably the first time you actually get to see everybody throughout this race, which was cool. And you get to see how they're doing, listen to their stories, and which made the experience just pretty amazing. And this next day, day 5, started at 10 o'clock, which after getting up at the crack of dawn every day, you kind of in that routine, and we get up early and all of us are waiting around, twiddling our thumbs, not really sure what to do. This morning become really hard to eat my porridge, almost reaching every time I'm taking a spoonful, but forced it down anyway. And there was a lot of waiting around. Blisters today were even worse. Once I put my shoes on, everybody's feet had swollen up, and I put it down to that because my feet had swollen. The pressure on the heels were even worse. No snowshoes, definitely, for that day. And I actually ran to the medics to get some codeine just for some pain relief. Same as I said every day to a couple of guys I was with, I'm not running today, I'm in so much pain, and ended up running the sprint. And I did recce the route just via a phone map the day before, and I knew that we had a left turn in after a steep downhill. At this point, I was sitting in fifth on that day, and the four guys ahead of me missed the left turn in, which I did shout to them, "You've gone the wrong way." One of them turned around and rejoined the track. But at this point, I was like, I'm in the lead. I'm going to win this stage. And although it wasn't for me to be competitive and win this race, when you are leading, it can do some wonderful things to your mental state and your self-belief. And I was like, let's just go out on a high and try and win this. So I ran the whole way of the final day, the sprint. And although the other three guys were actually there before me, because they took off 4.5k of the route by skipping the checkpoint one, deep down I feel that I won that stage. I didn't really make a fuss of it, but that's just the way it is. And I was desperate for the burger and enjoyed the beer with it too. But that is pretty much my story of this whole adventure and experience. I could probably sit down and talk to people for hours and about the whole thing in more detail, but just a quick run through of it there. And I'm going to leave you now with some videos that I took along the race that you can watch and listen to and experience the views that I had. But thanks again for following this journey. It's been pretty incredible, and I definitely recommend you go and do it for anyone that is on the fence of wanting to do something like this. When we put ourselves through these challenges, we definitely find some mental peace. And although we want to try and win, nobody really cares apart from the ones that do. And we're not the center of the universe. So just keep practicing your own strength and endurance well in life, and you'll get to where you want to be. But here's the videos. Have a watch. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and I'll see you on the next one.
It might be better than my original ones I lost. Ready? Push it. Hey! Whew!
There's a hat and a pair of gloves here.
I think that's
Yeah, mine. Getting the last bit of warmth out. Just in case someone hasn't left them.
Day 2 has begun. Beautiful. Woo! So closing into the end of day 2, I think I've got about 20-25 minutes to go. What a dramatic difference it's been since yesterday. Yesterday was horrendous, hated every moment of it. Finished in a lot of pain, the same pain I had on the race sim. But feel good today, don't know why. I think I had a really bad sleep the night before day 1, so maybe that's why. Last night was a great sleep, full 9 hours in the pit. But yeah, all good. Look how beautiful it is. Who have we got here? Oh.
Really good shit.
Quick update, it's day 3. Going okay. Feet are starting to feel it now. I've had a few blisters, but it's not stopped me moving, which is the main thing. Quite a tough day this one for the head. You're on lakes for most of it, so it's quite barren. You can see we're on the way to base camp now, so all checkpoints complete today. Closing in at the end of day 4. Oh, it's fucking good. 65k it will be. Something beautiful, the sun's going down or gone down. It's snowing and I can't see one single person. So simple and so lovely.